has always marched to the beat of a different drummer. On this edition of Test Drive, well, it's more of the same. This is the all-new XV Crosstrek. Looking back at Subaru's history shows its propensity for unusual vehicles. One need only look back at the Wedgie XT and SVX, along with the short-lived Baja, to get the picture. Of late, however, the company had started to move ever closer to the mainstream market, as was witnessed by the likes of the Legacy and Impreza. Now come two left fielders. The BRZ as a sports car minus Subaru's trademark symmetrical all-wheel drive system. The oddly named XV Crosstrek? Well, it's just plain odd. The cabin of this Crosstrek has everything you expect from Subaru. The materials are very nice and the layout entirely logical. For instance, the radio sits high enough up you can actually rely on peripheral vision. Then there's a screen at the top of the center stack. It houses a host of information, including a trip computer. It all comes together as a very functional package. It's just boring. Based on the Impreza, the Crosstrek employs Subaru's 2-litre boxer engine. In this case, it puts forth 148 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque at a respectable 4,200 RPM. As is the norm, the boxer engine does have a somewhat gruff tone, but it is a smooth operator that does not mind revving. Sadly, it does a lot of that, and as a result consumed a test average of 10.1 litres per 100 kilometres. Now that's a lot more than the posted numbers. When you drive this Subaru Crosstrek, it actually feels pretty quick and it boils down to the rapid throttle tip-in. However, when you put a stopwatch on it, it's a very different story. It takes 10.8 seconds to amble its way from rest to 100 kilometers an hour, and in the more important 80 to 120 passing move, an agonizing 8.2 seconds. But you know, I think I do have a solution. Put a turbocharger under here. The power is relayed to the road through all four wheels and a continuously variable transmission. There is a manual available. The all-wheel drive system is, in a word, excellent. The transmission unfortunately proved to be anything but. It became continuously annoying because of the manner in which it pegged the engine at the top of the rev range whenever I rolled into the gas, which made things noisy. This perhaps explains why the CVT model gets a hood insulator the manual transmission does not. The silver lining is the manual mode and the access to it through the paddle shifters, and it comes regardless of shifter position. When it comes to utility, the Crosstrek is actually pretty good. 632 litres with the seats up and 1470 with them folded flat. You'll also find a nice flat floor with very little intrusion into the usable space. Then there's a privacy cover and a rear wash wiper. So what's missing? A backup camera. You see, I cannot see the ground whatsoever because of that high belt line until right about here. In terms of ride and handling, the Crosstrek's body does roll because the ride height has been jacked up to 220 millimeters. This tends to introduce a little vagueness in the steering's feedback and understeer surfaces whenever the XV is pushed towards the limit. The ride, however, is refined. Off-road, the elevated ground clearance did allow the XV Crosstrek to traverse some surprisingly gnarly terrain with the sort of aplomb expected of an SUV. No complaints in this regard. Over the past 25 years, I've tested hundreds of cars on motoring, and without exception, I've understood the car. Didn't always agree with the placement and where it was aimed, but I got it. The Crosstrek, I just do not get.